Good morning. Feel a bit of an idiot making a video to post on Facebook, but there we go. Well, why am I posting this video first of all? Well, I'm out for a walk at the moment, a 9-mile walk, coincidentally. I know some of you know the reason for that. I'm not on my own. I do have some company over there eating some grass by all accounts. I'm not that desperate yet. I've got a stupidly heavy bag on my back, which has my oxygen tank, amongst other things. So I risk looking like even more of a lunatic if somebody walks past us. We're currently in Telford Town Park. We've done about just over 3.5 miles so far, which, trust me, is a long way for this dog. So I envision she'll be sleeping the rest of the week once we get home. Well, why am I doing this walk? Well, a number of reasons. Well, first of all, I can't run. My last run was 7 weeks ago, the Stafford Half Marathon, and the following day was the start of my current cluster headache episode. I know a number of you would have seen my posts on Facebook in regards to what a cluster headache is. Well, part of me wishes it didn't have the word headache in it for a start, because what do we all think of when we think of a headache? We think, had a few too many the night before, bit of a pain across the forehead, irritating, nagging feeling, could be out in the sun for too long, or just having a bad day with a bit of a headache. Well, let me reassure you, cluster headache is nothing like that. Medical professionals don't understand it, which makes it even more difficult to deal with it. It's not the same as a migraine, contrary to what most, medical professionals even seem to think. Standard painkillers, be they over-the-counter painkillers or prescription, such as codeine, morphine, and some seriously strong painkillers, have no effect whatsoever when it comes to cluster headaches, and a lot of them can actually make, if this is even possible, make it even worse than it is. So I think it's difficult. I don't expect people to understand what cluster headaches are, first of all, because let's face it, who's heard of them? I hadn't heard of them till 2008 when I was first diagnosed, and that was literally a case of I was washing my hands one day, looked up in the mirror, realised that my right pupil wasn't responding to the light at all, freaked out. Everything in the world crosses your mind in that moment, brain tumours and so on, and I panicked and I went to see the doctor. Had my first lesson in doctors thinking that it was a migraine, because I was sent away with diclofenac painkillers and the diagnosis of a migraine. So I went away. The headaches continued, pretty much one a day, sometimes two on a bad day. So I just carried on, and within a week they disappeared, and I didn't see anything of them for about 4.5 years, which is a long period to go without cluster headaches. However, having spoken to my dad, who has spent much of his life in the world of neurology, he mentioned to me, maybe it could be something called cluster headaches, which I quickly looked up. I realised that only 1 in 1,000 people suffers from cluster headaches. Lucky me. So it's pretty rare. But when we say the word rare, it's pretty much the same frequency as MS, and we've all heard of MS. It just gets a hell of a lot more coverage than cluster headaches. There's a lot more charities that look for cures. So it's pretty little known condition. To try and describe the pain, and I can't, you see people saying it's worse than the pain of childbirth. That's from women, by the way, not me. you know, you see people calling it suicide headaches. I get that, I understand, particularly for people who are chronic, who live with this condition every day for the rest of their life. You know, I get why it's called that. You see people liken it to amputation without anaesthetic. Again, I don't know, I've never tried, but the pain is quite simply the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. This time around is by far the worst experience of cluster headaches I've ever suffered from. Like I said, normally I would have, you know, 1, possibly 2 a day. It would last a week, and it'd go away, and I wouldn't see it again for a good few years. This time, well, we're 7 weeks yesterday when my cluster headache started, and what followed was probably the most horrific 5 weeks of my life. I say probably without question, the most horrific 5 weeks of my life. So to describe the pain, I would say, if you can imagine somebody sticking a knife into the top corner of your eye socket, and at the same time inflating a balloon inside your head, it feels like not only you've been stabbed in the head, but also that your eye is about to pop out, your head wants to explode. You hear stories of people taking a Black & Decker drill to their own temple to try and release the pressure, and obviously as a result killing themselves. So there's a reason it's called suicide headaches, and it hurts. I won't try not to swear on this video, but it really, really, really is indescribable. A couple of weeks ago, I was having up to 9 cluster attacks a day, and it just got unbearable. I ended up having 3 ambulances. I ended up in A&E. I very quickly learnt a lesson that going to A&E is a waste of time, because nobody understands what cluster headaches are. They offer you cocodamol and they try and get rid of you as quickly as possible. I have every respect for our NHS. You know, I spend half my life talking about how great our NHS is, but one thing I've realised very little understanding about is what they can do for cluster headaches. You know, something as simple as getting somebody on high flow oxygen, which I'm currently carrying on my back. So apologies for the military cheesy bag, it's the only one that it would fit in. But that's one of very few ways we can do something about it. Now, obviously the other thing I've now had for a couple of weeks is my little auto injector pens. All right, I'm not good with jabs at the best of times, so sticking a needle in myself has been a whole new experience. But believe you me, when you get to that point where the pain reaches its threshold and you see no way out, then a little needle sticking in your leg is the last of your concerns. So it's been horrific. 2 weeks ago I had a nerve block injection in the back of my skull, which is a combination of anaesthetic and steroids, and I'm extremely grateful to say that things have got increasingly more mild. I still have nagging headaches, something they call shadows, which is pretty much a cluster attack just going on in the background, but the nerve block is doing its job at the moment, and I still get sort of shadow pains around my nose, around my eye socket, exactly the same one-sided pain that I get for the cluster headaches, just a whole lot milder. So I couldn't be more grateful for a bloody great big needle being shoved in my head. I've got a couple of cyclists about to come past, so I'm going to go rather quiet for a minute to save my embarrassment. Don't do videos. Here's the dog while you wait. So there we go. Okay, so what do I want to make this video? Well, first of all, I just want to get across how grateful I am to my family who stood by my side throughout this, and also my friends. You know, you only realise who your true friends are when you're this desperate. And you know, I am extremely grateful to each and every one of you. It's not easy to watch. I've got someone walking towards me. Great. A cluster headache is something that's not easy to watch. Not easy to watch at all. I end up pacing around in absolute agony, rubbing my head. And there's nothing you can do as somebody who's watching on and seeing it happen. I appreciate that my dad, my wife Lynn, and of course my gorgeous little girl Holly are pretty much the only people that have witnessed full-on cluster attacks so far, and it's not nice for anybody to watch. Trust me, it's no better where I'm standing. But I feel their pain. They feel helpless. There's nothing they can do, and I really appreciate every single bit of support I've had from friends and family. Even messages on Facebook, you know, have really cheered me up, because it's been the lowest I've ever felt. For myself, you know, had a massive effect. You know, that effect of isolation. You know, I've not been able to leave the house for 7 weeks, pretty much. Supermarkets, the furthest I've dared go. You know, it's hard. I think during the particularly difficult 2 weeks, you know, I ventured to the supermarket 4 times and I had 3 cluster attacks every time I left the house. So you become scared. You become scared of leaving the house. You don't want to be in a public place when that happens. I ended up sticking a needle in my leg when I went to Telford Town Park with Holly and my dad. Not the first person to stick a needle in them in Telford Town Park, to be fair. But it wasn't a nice experience, you know, it was embarrassing. And again, they felt helpless. So I am extremely grateful to all of you. So let's get back to today and another cyclist. There's lots of cyclists out today. Let's get back to today. Now, some of you will know that, well, exactly 2 weeks today, I should be travelling down to Heathrow to get on a plane, which was going to take me to a small country in West Africa called Sierra Leone. That wasn't just on a whim, find an event and enter it. You know, that was a big part of my life. My trip to Sierra Leone with the RAF regiment, and you know, that was something that I thought for my 40th birthday I would try and do something special. Can't really describe how upset it makes me having had to postpone that to next year, but we'll get there. I will get there. And that's the important bit. One thing I've really taken away from these cluster headaches, one really big thing for me, the perspective it has given me on life. You know, not being able to leave the house, not being able to do normal things, go for a walk, you know, take the dog to the field, you know, eat what I want, drink what I want. You know, I've almost had my freedom sort of ripped away. And that's been hard, you know, that's been really hard. And it's given me a lot of perspective. There are people out there who can't leave the house. You know, there are people who just have nowhere to turn. You know, some people don't have the support that I've had. And in life in general, you know, even something as simple as rushing around, getting the kids ready for school, the madness of the school run. You know, it can get on top of you in everyday life. But then, I think back to my main motive for going to Sierra Leone. And the true reason is that we're lucky. You know, we are lucky. We are so lucky to be able to get out. Look at these trees all around me. Look at this. You know, I'm here. I'm happy. I'm with my dog. I'm out enjoying freedom. Well, people don't have that. You know, a lot of people don't have that. One thing, I'm just going to go down here for a minute because there's lots of people about and I look like a bit of an idiot. One thing I think we sort of forget is how lucky we are. And this for me you know, as horrendous as it's been, has been one hell of a reminder of how lucky we are. Now, my main motive for going to Sierra Leone in the first place was to support a fabulous charity called Street Child UK. Street Child help to get children into education. That may not sound like much, but the truth of the matter is very few children in Sierra Leone even have the chance of an education. One thing I've found or realised so far with my fundraising is just how difficult it is to raise money for children that aren't at home, that aren't in the UK. I organised a virtual event. I spent £450 on medals, and so far I've sold about 40 of those places, and there's no sign of that picking up, which I find a little bit sad. You know, to me, at the end of the day, a child is a child, and with millions of them not even having the opportunity of an education, much like, you know, many parts of the world, you know, it's something simple that we can do. Now, the charity Street Child don't just work in Sierra Leone, but the work they do in Sierra Leone involves building schools, training teachers, getting kids off the street, out of poverty and into education. And what could be more important than that? You know, what could be more important than that? Gonna get these sunglasses up for a minute. Yes, I look like crap. But imagine we were in that position. Imagine your children didn't have that chance, you know, something as simple as being able to go to school, something that we take for granted. I, for one, think that's something that shouldn't happen. You know, children should have the opportunity of a basic education, you know, read, write, as simple as that. And one memory I have from my visits to Sierra Leone with the RAF regiment was first thing in the morning, and I'm talking early in the morning, you would see streams of children in the most pristine uniforms you have ever seen, walking down the road to school, you know, and these are the lucky ones. These are the ones that have that opportunity, and not many children do. Why were their uniforms pristine? Not because their parents were rich, far from it. You know, on a daily basis, you see people washing in the river 20 meters upstream. There's people going to the toilet in the river. That's how poor this country is. You know, fighting over a fish, you know, because that's how hungry these people are, walking miles on end just to get water, you know, every single day. I know we see it all the time on programs on TV, you know, the two big ones, Comic Relief and Children in Need. We see video clips, and yeah, it brings tears to our eyes, but when you see it in person, when you see how desperate these families are, and then at the opposite end of the spectrum, those pristine uniforms that the children are wearing to school, you think, well, where did they get the money for these uniforms? Well, the simple fact of the matter is, it matters to them that much. Okay, it matters to them that much that their children get an education. They are all handmade, these uniforms, by their families. That is the pride these families have, being able to send their children for an education. Now, just imagine that for a minute. Just imagine what that would be like. And that's why Sierra Leone matters to me. Some children in Sierra Leone walk to school. Well, all children in Sierra Leone walk to school. There's no drop-off zones in Sierra Leone. Some people walk up to some children walk up to 9 miles each way every single day for that opportunity for an education. So why am I walking 9 miles today? Well, I'm extremely grateful to everyone who's entered my virtual event so far. And I've entered it too. Tiza hasn't, still trying to convince her to pay up. But I've entered it myself. And this for me today it's a challenge, you know, it's a gamble. I've been really ill despite what many people may think, you know, when they see the word headache, I've been really, really ill. So this for me matters. And I wouldn't mind one of these decent medals as well. So please, if you haven't already, I'll post a link in the comments with the entry. I'll also post a link to my fundraising page for those who aren't able to be as lucky as most of us and get out and do 9 miles. Please support me. This means a hell of a lot more than you know. And thank you for taking the time to watch what has been a 20-minute video and a welcome rest for my best friend over there and myself, if I'm completely honest. Please support my cause. I've got another year now to fundraise for Street Child, and I plan to absolutely smash that target. So if you wouldn't mind, I would really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching.